Welcome. My name is Taylor. I'm with Hacking Company at Remax River City, and we are wrapping up October. It's the beginning of December or the beginning of November right now. We're already seeing snow in the capital city of Alberta, and it has been an interesting month. It's been an interesting month when you take a look at what has been happening in Edmonton, but even more so when you take a look at national news and realize that everybody's got their own little market. Let's bring in the Hack and Co squad and talk about this a little bit further. I'm going to do some introductions here. Let's go ladies first. The rare one among us here, Amy Brown. Thanks for hanging out with a bunch of fellas. You're keeping our ratio in line.
My pleasure.
How you doing this morning?
Doing really good. It was an exciting night last night. I had another one go through, so I'm feeling great.
So, like, what does it feel like to be on fire? To put in perspective, I think that if we count 14 days back, you've done a deal every other day.
Yeah, I think yes, I'm at 7. Yep, that's right. It feels
And
great.
that's something that, like, I'm not sure if you know this, but there, like, on average, there's like 18,000 MLS transactions and there's about 3,000 agents. So that means that the average agent has about 6, and you just did more than that in a single week. And they're talking about 6 a year.
I'm working hard, guys.
And let's also introduce Craig Bentley. Craig, how are you doing, fella?
Fantastic. It's a winter wonderland out there. Happy that we're officially past October and moving into the winter months.
Absolutely. And that's also something that, like, you have had this perspective from so many different markets. You've seen markets that were way hotter than Edmonton, and then coming into Edmonton, seeing how our market is different. And that's got to be something that you're continuing to experience. Do you really feel like as though the Edmonton market is on par with the other markets throughout the country?
No, not at all. It's a totally different market here. If we're talking about Ontario, the Toronto market, they had years and years of steady growth. Well, here in Edmonton, we were just gradually upticking, then we would drop a little bit and then come back up, where now all of these markets are starting to have those major corrections. We're not seeing so much of that here.
That's an interesting perspective. Like, what goes up must come down. And if we didn't really go up, how do you fall down when you're already lying down? The Edmonton market is being sheltered a little bit like that. And that's got to be like an overall interesting experience, especially when you take a look at it through the lens of new eyes. So, Cordell, welcome to Market Stats. We've got you on our first one here. And how does it feel? Are you being totally shocked by the spotlight?
Not really. I was kind of expecting it.
It's going all right?
Yep.
That's great to hear. And when you take a look at how much video you've done even before you joined us this morning, that's something that is also a lot of people couldn't see from the outside, is that this is not your first time on video. Are you at the hundreds yet?
I think I might be, just with all the bombs we do. I definitely try to take multiple bombs every day to different clients and different lead sources. So no, it's not my first time.
And I heard that you were just working with some family that you helped purchase here in Edmonton that was from Drayton Valley. How helpful was the video part of our experience there?
They really loved the video of me going over all the paperwork. It really laid out everything that they were signing, everything that they were reading over. It only took about 6 minutes, and in that 6 minutes provided tons of value.
That's great. And I know that a lot of times when I send videos like that, I'll see response later that they watch the video like 17 or 18 times. And that really makes us able to serve throughout Canada and even outside Canada, even though I guess that's a limited window. What we're seeing is more news about the impending buyer ban, where Canada is going to close its border for like the next 2 years to foreign buyers. But it's probably going to be pretty exciting here because Canadian real estate is doing well by comparison to many other international markets. I also want to introduce Anthony DeSouza. Anthony is probably the most heavily networked among other small business owners. Having your own BNI, what are you seeing from other small business owners as we go through what some might call a turbulent economy?
Yeah, I mean, I see a lot of uncertainty. I think a lot of people are just nervous about the market overall, but it's always nice to be surrounded by professionals that can kind of lay out what's actually happening, scary news, but actually, interest rates are normal compared to what they have been in the past. So yeah, it's all about perspective and just being confident in what you do.
And what about the perspective of those clients that you've been helping? Like, I think that you're pretty close to having helped 50 families this year buy or sell property.
Mm-hmm.
That's an incredible accomplishment. And when you look at those people, are they saying that they did what other people are hesitant to do, that they entered the real estate market, and did they all survive?
Everybody survived. And the interesting thing is everybody needs a place to live. So it's just about, making sure you make the right decision for your family.
And I think that that's more important to us than people would know. Is like, we do not want people to call us just when they want to buy or sell. We want them to call us when they're thinking about buying or selling, because until they have all the information, how can they make an informed decision?
Right.
And I really think that they should spend some time with some teammates and see how we look at real estate and see how many families that we tell, you know what? This is the market you're looking for. It's not here right now. We're going to keep in touch with you until it's time. Like, I think that several of our teammates have actually worked with clients that have been known to the team for years. Well, let's get into the mix here, because we have had an interesting October. Dominating the news has been information about net migration and interest rates, which is something that comes to everyone. When we take a look at how the average mortgage has changed from like February to now, like through 6 different rate changes, we're seeing that those people in variable payments, that's gone up really significantly. Right. And that's been something that has been continuing to dominate the news. But is it actually making the same change here that is making in other markets? What do you guys think? Do you think that Edmonton is the same as Toronto and Vancouver?
No.
And why is that? Amy, you said no.
I said no because our properties are not the same kind of pricing. So, I mean, interest rates are going to affect you regardless of what price you're at. But I think that if you're at, 1.5 million versus say 300,000 on your mortgage, those are different things.
I totally agree. The affordability here is also different when it comes to access to pay for those houses. You know how much money you need to rent in Vancouver? Like an average household income of $150,000 to be a renter there. And that's not getting enough news right now, is the way that rents are going up in those areas. Like, they're testing their rent control limits with how fast rent is moving in Toronto and Vancouver, and how closely that is related to the interest rates that we're seeing. Let's dive into a little bit of the statistics. What we talk about or what we get asked the most is this a buyer's market or a seller's market? And we calculate that out using months of inventory. Can you take us into it, Craig?
Yeah, absolutely here. So months of inventory, it's pretty well, if there was no new listings that came to the market as of today, how long would it take for all the properties to sell at its current sale rate? So right now, for October, we had 4.9 months of inventory, which means we are in a buyer's market, which I love. Going into the winter months, we usually always creep into a buyer's market. And there's some properties that have been kicking around a little while that people want to sell. So you're more likely to get a better deal on something that's been kicking around. And compared to September, we're right on par, pretty well virtually identical at 4.8 months of inventory, but a drastic change year over year. I know last year things were really hot around here going through the winter months into early 2022. We are up, it was 3.8 months of inventory at this time last year. So definitely a little bit of a change year over year.
That's interesting. How's the rest of us seeing that? So according to the statistics, we have now swept into that buyer's experience. And what many people might be like, oh my goodness, is taking a look at October of 2021 versus October of 2022. Do you get what was October of 2021 a normal, like a normal experience to compare against?
It was not normal at all. Last October, buyers were very nervous. And right now, in the last month, buyers feel confident, right? They feel like they can take the time they need to make good decisions, and really only have to jump at the brand new stuff on the market. But the stuff that's been sitting around, they can definitely take their time. And, is there going to be multiple offers? Might not be on all properties, but we're definitely seeing a huge shift from last year at this time.
Yeah, that's something that I have that I feel as well. And also, when you take a look at it being a buyer's market, I think that more buyers should understand that, meaning that the market was really not for them in 2021. Like buyers were lining up in droves, they were making offers. We saw several buyers that had to make many offers in order to convert on a house. And how do you line up a purchase and a sale if you're a family that already owns real estate, you want to buy something, and the market is moving that quickly? Like, would you suggest that buyers last year had less choice than they do right now? Yep, I would suggest that's the case, but I also think that we're a little bit shy on great listings. Like, I think that there's some families that should be bringing houses to the market. Their houses would get amazing response, but they're looking at national news and they're thinking, you know what? Oh, it doesn't look so good, right? And they also have to understand that they're likely the buyer to something. And if you're buying more than you're selling, if you're a family thinking about upgrading, the two things that I want you to take out of your mind is one, waiting for spring. The house is going to be the same price based on what we're seeing right now, but the interest rates are going to be higher. And then the other thing that I would like more people to know about is that if you're buying more than you're selling, you are a buyer. So this is a buyer's market. Let's go. This is family business that I'm really passionate about. We're all trying to deliver 18 summers to our kids, and making decisions like this and doing things that other people don't do when it makes sense. That is actually how you make money. So market timing is in your favor. Now let's talk about the flow of things, like sales to new listing ratio. How much is coming to the market versus leading? Can you take us into that, Tony?
Sure. So sales to new listing ratio basically just shows the relationship of all the new listings coming to the market and showing the rate of sales that are happening during that same amount of time. And so what we're seeing in October of 2022, single family homes, 57% of listings are selling based on the sales to new listings. And at this time last year, we were at 77%. So we're down 20% in this statistic from last year. But looking at the last couple of months, we're pretty close. Like last month was 49% of the, let's say there was 5 new listings that came to the market. Half of those were going to sell. And it's just interesting to see how the market is trending and how cyclical it is. It's really showing us that the last couple of months are a trend. And then comparing to last year, where we know was a little bit different of a market, as Craig was mentioning. And what we're seeing is condos, 55%, exactly what it was at this time last year as well. And overall, total residential, 55% this year in October. Last year was in that 71, but it's been the same month over month for the last couple of months.
So that's kind of interesting. So we see that for every 10 properties that are coming to the market, 5 of those 5 properties are leaving the market if you just measure in the same month, right? Mm-hmm. And this is the market that we've known historically, but I think that sellers may want to pay attention a little bit, that when there's 10 coming on for 5 leaving, you do have to pay attention at the market accumulating inventory. So get on and get off. Price well, market well. We have a full rollout when it comes to listing houses to the market with coming soon and a network of agents around us, and really leaning into that first period on the market. You don't want to stay on the market right now. The longer you test, the more the market may move. So coming on with a great plan, getting off, and then going and crushing it on that place you want to buy, that is that's what this sales to new listing ratio says to me. So Cordell, we're talking about days on market. Can you give me a definition of that and maybe take us into it a little bit?
Sure. So days on market is the average days that a home spends on the market from getting listed, going through pending, to finally selling. And this month, we're at a total residential of 47 days on market, which is actually the exact same as October of 2021. So we're not in that bad of shape, as well as we are lower than last month. Last month was 48 days. This month is 47 days. And where we're seeing is condos aren't moving as fast. Condos days on market has risen from last year, but single family and duplexes have lowered.
Interesting. So we're seeing this as a trend now. Tony was just talking about it. Cordell is talking about it. What the hell's going on with condos? Is the condo market in Edmonton thawing?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I need some speculation. Why is this happening here?
I think people want to get away from condo fees.
Well, they seem to be like attracted to these properties because the days on market is down. So more people may be buying these, or there may be less on the market. What do you think, Amy?
I think that condos are quite affordable. I think for people that waited and thought, I'm going to wait and I can buy something bigger and better, I think that with the interest rates now that they can't anymore. So if they want to get into home ownership, a condo's where they've got to go.
That's an interesting perspective.
Too.
Go ahead, Tony.
Just an influx of investors, right? Especially if they're coming from these other markets, they could buy, a couple condos for the price of one, depending where they're at. So
this is something that I'm seeing, right? Like I imagine that there's certain parts of the world that are on like the migratory route of great white sharks, and they probably know the season when there's likely to be big fins in the water. And I can tell you that I have not seen big fins in the water like this in the last decade. Like we're hearing about packages of condos selling where it's like 50 to 140 doors at once in a package. And a lot of this stuff is happening under the $150,000 mark. So we're seeing a lot of condos change hands here. We're also seeing that condos are not accumulating inventory the way they used to be. And that could really be an indication of a stronger rental market. Like there's so many people with apartment style condos that wouldn't sell if they could have a renter, and they have renters right now because of how many people are moving to Alberta. Majority of people that move here are moving here and going to rent first and then determine whether or not they're going to plant roots here. So that's also something that we see, because I know that there was a lot of condos that have come to the market in the last 5 years because they couldn't find tenants. So when we talk about inventory, we're talking about how many properties are on the market. What did that look like in October, Amy?
All right. So it looked pretty normal. It was exactly what we thought that it was going to be. So new properties coming to the market was at 2,650. That's less than last month. And that year over year is about equal. For total properties, we've got 7,145. Again, less than last month, but year over year, we've actually got a few more there. Same thing with rural. We're at 146 new properties, which is down from last month, but pretty much the same as last year, and 782 total rural properties on the market. So basically what we're seeing is very close to what we saw last year. And the one thing that I would want to say about this is that last year was a bit of an anomaly in that November, December, January, and February were saying there was not enough inventory. Things were going into multiples, which is not typical in real estate. And I think we probably will see that again this year.
That's interesting. So you're expecting for it to be hot when we normally think it's not.
Correct. Yes, I definitely am.
All right. And I can understand why that's the case, because obviously when interest rates go up, if you're in a market that's less affordable, you might have to leave.
I don't think it's just interest rates. I think it has to do with everybody thinking, I've got to wait for the spring. And then you get those brave people that put their house on the market. Good properties are scarce and they go. Even the one that I did last night, multiple offers. It was almost $1 million property and we had to go over list to get it. So it depends on where you are and all different kinds of variables, but don't be afraid to bring your house to the market during this time.
Totally. Like really, when you came into new residential listings last month, it was only 2,600 as compared to over 3,000 for the months before that. Yeah. So there is less competition that has arrived for sellers in this last month than months before. And that's also signs that our economy is strong, because we're not hearing of a lot of people having to come to the market because they're in distress. I am hearing about that in other markets. Okay, let's talk a little bit, or I'm going to talk a little bit about volume of sales. So when we take a look at inventory coming to the market, we also have to consider inventory that is leaving the market. And so this is where we talk about sales. Now, in the month of October, when we take a look at total residential, we were just shy of 2,000, like right in the 1,800 range as far as the number of sales that we had in 2021. When we forecast now to this last month in 2022, we saw that number drop to just below 1,500 sales. Really where the biggest impact was probably on single family residences. And I do believe that this is a bit of the pandemic effect, because during the pandemic, nobody wanted to share walls with anybody except for duplexes for some reason. Duplexes were like the dark horse of the pandemic. And really, when we see duplex sales, they are also almost actually like 30% down from where they were October of last year. So some of what we saw in the volume of sales in 2021 was like a pandemic special. And in other markets, it was so much more significant than here that they're seeing way more correction than we're seeing right now. So we're kind of humming along at about 1,500 sales in October. There was about 1,600 in September and about 1,800 in August. But this is normal year over year when we close the spring. If you look at the trajectory last year, even though the numbers were higher, the trend line was the same. So any thoughts or questions on what you guys see when you're looking at how many properties are selling? Do you find it particularly hard to sell property right now?
No.
Not if you're priced right. And it really depends on like location, right? What community is the home in? What else is for sale nearby? And, you know, the amount of prep work that we do ahead of listings, I think makes a big difference. But it's always about having a good strategy.
I would totally agree. And what do you guys think about these numbers? So when we take a look at average price, we're seeing that average price for total residential was $381 this year in 2022. Last year, it was $377. So we're just a little bit up when it comes to average price. And if we take a look at the trend line, this year, August, it was $376, $375, then $381. And last year it was $384, $377, $377. So really, when you're taking a look at how volumes are moving, they have changed significantly. But average price is it's right on the button. It's a little up from last year. And probably the biggest winners this year were the duplexes. Like holy crow, like $358 last year, $372 this year. Single family is also up $12,000. So there's a lot of good information when it comes to like what's happening in our marketplace. But what do you guys have your eyes set on when we take a look at how this year is going to close? So right now we're closing off October. We have 2 months left, November and December. Anybody seeing some stuff dancing in their crystal ball?
I think we were talking the other day about builds. Like it seems like a lot of families are kind of positioning themselves to think about building over the winter. So I've had an uptick in interest there, and it's always fun starting that process off at this time of the year. When we're going on showings, we're going into nice warm show homes. We're helping people, figure or determine, normalize the pricing compared to other builders, and it's a fun process to go through. But I think that just buyers right now, in general, feel pretty confident, and once they've got that pre-approval locked in, they're pretty set on finding a right place before they have to lock in at a different rate.
Okay, let's unpack that for a little bit. So when people are going to buy houses, you're saying that not all of them go in and just do it themselves? There's so many people out there that don't know that you can bring a realtor to a show home, right?
And should.
Okay, Amy, you have some perspective on this. You may have spent a little bit of time in a show home with 15 years in the builder market.
16, yeah. And honestly, at the time, I thought of these realtors as like, oh, they're so annoying. Get out of here. You don't know anything about this. But now that I am a realtor, I can see the difference that a realtor can make. And I see that it turned out that I was representing the builder, where the whole time I felt like I was representing the client. But at the end of the day, the builder was who I worked for. And so really, you should have somebody on your side when you're going through a build, somebody that can explain pricing and all different kinds of things that even the builder rep doesn't necessarily know. They don't know what's happening on the real estate market. They know what's being sent down by their head office.
Okay, and this is like the key element when it comes to pricing, because pricing comes from head office and they're going to challenge the limits of what they can get in still sell houses, right?
Yeah.
So it's not actually ever set with any resale numbers.
Correct.
Head office doesn't necessarily have anything more than the market stats that are printed in the paper. They would have some connections and feel for the market, but the average person walking in to buy a property, holy wow, should they ever have that price checked?
Absolutely.
Because it should be in the same market that you can buy an alternative property. And if it's not, then you may be paying too much. Like, we do understand that there is a premium that people pay for brand new with warranty. We all acknowledge that. That would be taken into our consideration. But like, I've seen some massive different outcomes. Like, Tony, you had taken somebody into a show home and got a price quote and found another builder that would build the next door. And this was like in the $600,000 range. They would build next door the same spec plan. And what was the price difference?
It was like a $75,000 price difference, and there was
Over
things about that.
10%?
Yeah, it was crazy. But even like in the last couple of months, like taking money off whatever the builder suggested as the price, it was just a good experience when you can say, here's what resale looks like, here's what competition looks like nearby.
That's great. And thank you for that. I definitely think people are turning their attention towards builds. And I do think that there's great perspective from you, Amy, in the fact that most people don't know that they can get someone to help them, that they can get someone to price check this and give them information. And we've all done that. Helping people with builds is something that we do regularly on this team. And any other bold predictions as we close the year?
I believe we're going to continue to see people from other provinces working their way here, scooping up some opportunities that people are hesitant locally to take. So people should get out there right now, because going into the market next year, as we kind of mentioned, we expect prices to be somewhere around the same spot, even though interest rates might rise a little bit. We don't see a big decrease in price coming. So you should get in now and find some opportunity.
I like how you put that. Like, nobody has a crystal ball, but we definitely see trends. And if you think that we're going to have the same outcome as other markets, well, we're not trending in the same direction. So that's tough. Well, as we close this market, if anybody have any perspective for seller, or as we close our market update, anybody have any perspective for sellers, sellers that are thinking about coming to the market? Is there anything that they need to do to get one of the available buyers right now? What is your one thing that you think they should focus on?
Accurate pricing.
All right, two at once. Let's go Tony first, then Amy.
Just saying accurate pricing. You know, if you're using information from last year or what your neighbor's house sold for 6 months ago, it's not going to likely go well for you. So we're seeing a lot of sellers make mistakes that way. So make sure you're using the most up-to-date information and that you know what your competition looks like.
I agree with that completely, but I also think that having your house prepared, and the number one thing, super clean everywhere, that is going to make a huge difference.
So Amy, you're talking about show experience, and you walking buyers through a house, you see their reactions. How does a buyer react when they walk through a property that isn't clean?
They usually think they can get a deal on it. Even if it's in a market that's super busy and people are buying in, a house that's going to be a job, even if it is just cleaning, is going to be a house that you have to negotiate on. So when somebody sees a house that's unclean, they're like, well, what else have they not taken care of? Have they ever cleaned their furnace? Have they ever had anything tuned up? What else is going to happen here? So make sure your house is spick and span if you're going to list it. That's my advice.
Fantastic. Craig, you got one thing for sellers?
Accurate pricing. I completely agree with what Amy just said there. We definitely need a good show experience, but there's some investors out there that can look past cleanliness if they're going to be tearing down walls or ripping up carpet. So accurate pricing. There are a lot of active buyers right now. And if you hit it on the nose, you'll probably get offers within your opening weekend.
Fantastic. Any thoughts from yourself, Cordell? Sellers approaching the market?
Honestly, I agree with everything that everybody else said. Pricing and cleanliness is a huge thing. I know I walked into a showing the other day that had no appliances, and right away my buyers just turned right around, right? So it's just leaving notes like that. I wasn't aware that there was no appliances, just stuff like that. Like if you're not going to have something, make sure to tell the public.
Yeah, and that's something that people from outside of here don't really know, is that most properties in Edmonton sell including appliances. And if you don't include your appliances, you're actually a minority on the MLS system, and the majority of your competition doesn't require someone to have that additional cash or to do that additional work to go and find appliances and order them, which can be tricky. Supply chain has been weird. I got quoted 10 months on turnaround on a fridge. So it can be a little bit weird on that. I'm going to add one thing, and that's marketing. I think that we all think it's a given, right? Because our social media last year had over 500,000 engagements. So we all think that it's a given, but we know that if everybody knows about it, then you just need to sort out that show experience. And that's why we give great advice up front. And also then you can get more information to help people understand where they're priced compared to others. So thank you for being the amazing professionals that offer that advice and they get so many people to the finish line. This was the #1 team in our brokerage, which is a very competitive brokerage. And we're looking to see how we did in October, which hasn't been released yet. But for September, we were #1 at RE/MAX River City. And that was due to you guys. So thank you so much for being amazing. And thank you for saving so many people from 3-star experiences with someone else. This has been October Market Stats, and this is the Hack & Company team at RE/MAX River City. We really appreciate you, and we hope that you have a remarkable day.
See ya.